Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today we're going to be talking about two fairly terrifying stories, folks. One involving a skinwalker and the other some mysterious force or entity stalking a hunter out in the woods of North America. We'll start off with this article. Hunter's chilling encounter with something stalking me in the dark Minnesota woods, and we'll have some fun reading all about his account. In 1993, a seasoned archery hunter found himself alone in a silent spruce plantation south of Winona, Minnesota, until an overpowering stench and the sound of stealthy footsteps shattered the stillness. What unseen presence was pacing through the darkness, and could it have been one of the state's most elusive, unexplained creatures? It was 1993, and I'm a big archery hunter. It was hunting about 10 miles south of Winona, Minnesota. At the time, I was a diehard. I'm still passionate, but it was particularly intense back then. I sat until a little after dark and even lingered in the dark. I was quite a distance from a truck and had crawled out to my spot. It was pretty much pitch black. And for the first leg of my walk out, I went through a dense spruce plantation. It was very dark, except for the old road I was following. The area was tight and dark, with spruce needles covering the ground, which made my footsteps quiet. I remember the night being completely still, dead still. Not unlike every other night. After a while, I started walking out, I don't know, maybe 30 to 50 yards from my sight, when I walked into a wall of stench. It wasn't just a smell. It felt like I hit a solid barrier. I didn't actually step back, but I could tell that if I had, I would have stepped out of it. The smell was not rotten to me. It resembled strong body odor. It was overwhelming. I thought, what on earth is that? It was so unusual. I moved on after stepping out of it, but didn't dwell on it. Now, I would have thought this man would have dwelled on it a little bit, folks, because it seems to me that literally he basically hit a place where literally this stench, this smell was basically just rooted to that spot. Now, is it possible that maybe nearby there was something making that smell and that it just clung to this entity almost like a coat? Because to me, folks, it sounds like basically he stepped into a spot where literally the spot itself is almost like cursed with this smell or literally rooted to the spot like a tree. That doesn't make sense because it's the first time I've ever heard of a smell acting like that. Almost like a cold spot in a haunted house, actually. So, what was that? We'll talk about that a little more after we finish off the article here. Soon after that, because the night was so still, I was walking on the pine and spruce needles when I heard something to my right, a little behind me, breaking twigs. It wasn't loud, but in that silence, it was unmistakable. When I realized something was following me off to my right and behind, I would stop, and it would stop a moment later. I purposely stopped 3 or 4 times, and each time the same phenomena occurred. I would stop, and it would stop too. I would wait in silence, and when I started moving in, I would hear it snapping twigs. Snap, snap, snap. It followed me for at least 100 yards, maybe more, until the end of that spruce plantation where the woods opened up to a mix of other trees. I didn't hear it anymore, but I still had another quarter mile to my truck. I felt scared because I knew something was tracking me in there. And that's the thing, folks. What was tracking this man? So far, folks, in this account, this guy's story gives us the impression that this entity was, well, intelligent, at least a little bit. Approaching human? I don't know. But it's scary nonetheless, folks. But let's finish off this guy's story now. I had just returned from Montana, where I had been a big game hunter for several years, so I was familiar with the woods. I sensed that something was off. I couldn't tell if it was bipedal. All I knew was that it was in thick brush, and if it had been a person, it would have sounded like an elephant in that darkness. I knew it was something out of the ordinary, something strange. Do I know if it was Bigfoot? Absolutely not, but I knew it wasn't anything familiar, and coupled with the stench I encountered just before that, I started to think it probably was G. But that's the thing, folks. It seems like this guy stepped into an area of thick stench. That would mean that this Bigfoot was, and I mean this, everyone, that this Bigfoot was just feet away from him, because that's the only thing I can think of why this stench was so thick that basically it was rooted to the spot, almost like a cold spot in a haunted house, folks, as I said earlier. Either way, that's truly a terrifying account. But folks, let's move on to the next article here, which might even be more terrifying. Skinwalker encounter in South Texas. Terrifying wolf-headed humanoid stuns border town residents. And hear exactly what this werewolf or dogman-like entity actually might have been, folks. Was it a skinwalker, or perhaps another encounter with maybe the dogmen. Let's read on. In the quiet hours before dawn, a man in South Texas claims to have seen a translucent, wolf-headed humanoid racing through an alley, its ribs visible beneath pale, human-like skin. Was this a prowler from a local legend, a genuine encounter with a skinwalker, or something even stranger, stalking the borderlands? Let's get into the full account now. Hello, I live in a small border town at the southern tip of Texas. About a week ago, my brother shared something with me that has left me questioning his sanity ever since. He's the kind of guy who will get up in the middle of the night to check outside the house, especially since several neighbors have had their property stolen. Which isn't all that surprising, folks, but concerning what is about to happen to this witness here, and his story he was about to tell his brother, this was anything but a prowler, it sounds. So, let's continue with it and hear exactly how this man might have encountered one of the skinwalkers and possibly, maybe, a real brush with death. So let's read on. According to him, it was around 3:15 a.m. when he heard a chorus of dogs barking loudly and aggressively down the alley behind our house. He got up, walked down the hall, and looked out the back door window facing south. After staring out the window for about 5 minutes, he insists he saw what he can only describe as a combination of a humanoid figure with the head of a wolf darting down the alley in a flash. He mentioned that he could see its ribs protruding through its skin. As it ran, he said it appeared to be bending over with its palms flat on the ground, much like someone might bend down to touch their toes when stretching. He added that it didn't look very hairy, but seemed to have human-like skin, all while possessing a translucent white or smoke-like color. Even hunched over, it was about 5 feet tall and 5 feet long. So, incredibly terrifying, folks, from just the description alone. It sounds almost undead and ghoulish with the ribs protruding out from the skin, folks. So like maybe literally like a monster you'd see in some 80s horror movie, folks. Either way, let's continue now with this guy's account. The following day, he told my parents about the sighting, and they mentioned it to one of our neighbors. It turns out that a few days before my brother's sighting, their boxer had been stolen from their backyard. Instead of dismissing my brother and parents as crazy, the neighbor, who has a Native American background, explained that it was probably what Native Americans refer to as a skinwalker, and that is very likely searching for a stolen dog. She also mentioned that whatever stole the dog was probably cursed now. I know this story sounds bizarre, but unfortunately, I don't have any pictures or other evidence to present. For now, I'd like to ask if any of you have ever heard of or experienced anything related to a skinwalker or something similar. Thank you, Jay. Well, I've heard quite a few accounts of skinwalkers, folks, and they're nothing to basically dismiss as just mere folklore. I think maybe there's a possibility some of them are just, hoaxes, maybe using makeup, but some of them sound truly terrifying and sound very similar to basically encounters with basically various other phenomena, like, dogmen, UFOs. Because if some of the accounts are true, folks, they possess abilities very similar to what we would see from these other, phenomenal, unexplained weirdness that we've read through over the last few years, folks. Like basically teleporting, or flying, or even basically being half-human hybrid entities, like what was described in this account here, folks, with the dogman-like features of this entity. And these other accounts, they can basically be, flying humanoids, or other bizarre things, like basically rotting undead carcasses that are still able to move. Either way, whatever this entity was, this man should be glad he didn't face it directly, because it could have, easily killed him. Or if it was indeed a real skinwalker, then this man should be glad he didn't try to confront it. Because, let me make this clear, folks, skinwalkers are Native American witches, which means they aren't cryptids, but people who have magical powers, and they do indeed curse people. So this guy could have come out of it far worse for wear. But luckily it appears that maybe this entity was satisfied with what it was searching for. It didn't basically do anything to this man or any other people on the block. But folks, we're now at the end. So please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics, They're Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the description of the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Also, make sure you're still subscribed and leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.